the brides left behind. The wind cut through the high prairie like a blade, howling against the rough timber walls of the 3 cabins nestled near the riverbend. Winter had arrived early that year, biting and merciless. Inside those cabins lived 3 sisters, Clara, Maybelle, and Rose Whitmore, each one married, each one quietly unraveling. Clara, the eldest, moved through her home with the precision of habit. Her hands were red from scrubbing clothes in melted snow, her hair bound tightly beneath a scarf. She had once been the pride of their family, steady, sensible, devoted. George, her husband, had promised her land, a future, and children. But dreams die quietly in these parts. George drank now, disappearing for days at a time. He came back with hollow eyes, empty pockets, and the stench of cards and whiskey. Maybelle, sweet and delicate, lived in the cabin next door. Her husband Edward was not violent, but he was cruel in the way that left no bruises. His silence weighed heavier than any shout. He called her barren, as if it were a curse she brought upon him. She spent her days sewing clothes for children she never had, her smile more brittle with each passing week. Rose, the youngest and most spirited of the 3, had married Thomas in haste and fury. He was handsome, fast-talking, and reckless. She had believed she could tame him. But Thomas found his thrills elsewhere, most recently in the company of a peddler's daughter who passed through town. Rose found them behind the woodshed one evening. The next morning, Thomas was gone. 3 sisters, 3 men, 3 betrayals. That night, the storm came. Snow fell like judgment from the sky, fierce and unrelenting. Clara huddled near the fire, waiting for George. But he did not return. She found a note in his coat. Too much debt. Too many lies. I can't stay. Her breath caught in her throat, but no tears came. Only silence. May stayed out the window of her cabin. Edward had walked into town 2 days before and never came back. Word spread fast on the frontier. He'd joined a missionary heading east, alone. He hadn't even taken his wedding ring. She found it in the ashpan, blackened by fire. Rosie's cabin door slammed in the wind. She had no note, no goodbye. Just the echo of betrayal in her ears. Thomas had left her a split lip and the cold bed behind. She wrapped herself in a wool blanket and sat on the floor, numb. By morning, the sisters gathered in Clara's cabin. The fire flickered low, and the walls moaned against the wind. No one's coming back, Rose muttered. Not George. Not Edward. Not Thomas. Clara poured hot water into a tin mug and passed it to May, who clutched it like salvation. We'll survive, Clara said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her weariness. We have to. May blinked slowly. But how? There's no more flour. No salt. No wood. I'll trap rabbits, Rose said. We'll take turns gathering. There's food in the hills. There has to be. For weeks, they endured. The wind never stopped. The woodpile thinned. The rabbits grew scarce. Yet each day, they moved. Clara mended what she could. May patched boots. Rose hunted. Together, they lasted. And yet, something deeper cracked, an ache beneath the hunger. It wasn't just about surviving the cold. It was about surviving the abandonment. The betrayal. Late one night, May whispered aloud in the darkened cabin. Did we do something wrong? Clara stirred. No, but maybe we weren't enough. You were too good, Rose snapped, her voice thick with unshed tears. All of us were. Clara's hand found her sister's in the dark. She gripped it tight. They were cowards, Clara whispered. And we're still standing. Outside, the wind screamed over the plains, but inside the sisters sat in silence. 3 women bound by blood and pain, by the hollow space left behind by men who should have loved them. Yet somewhere beyond the hills, unseen and unknown, riders crossed the snow. Their braids caught the wind. Their horses were swift. The Lakota were near, the riders in the snow. Snow blanketed the earth in ghostly silence. Every tree branch stood like bone against the pale sky, brittle and unmoving. The wind had calmed, but the chill remained, creeping into joints, stiffening fingers, gnawing at resolve. The Whitmore sisters had survived the storm, but they were unraveling. Clara stood at the edge of the frozen stream, watching water gurgle beneath a thin sheet of ice. Her cheeks were raw. The rabbit traps had come up empty again, and the snow made tracking impossible. Hunger tightened in her belly like a fist. She turned at the crunch of footsteps. Rose emerged from the trees, face flushed and breath short. "There's nothing out there," she said bitterly. "Not even bird tracks. Just cold. Just silence." Clara nodded. Neither of them said the truth out loud. They were running out of time. That night, May collapsed while tending the fire. Clara caught her before her head hit the floor. "She hasn't eaten in 2 days," Rose said, voice cracking. "We all haven't," Clara replied, gently lifting May onto the cot. Her skin felt like paper, too pale, too dry. "She needs help. We need help." But no one came to this part of the prairie. No missionaries, no lawmen, only wind and wolves. Until that dawn, Clara was chopping ice from the water barrel when she heard it, hoofbeats. Soft at first, like a heartbeat through snow. Then louder. Rose ran from the tree line, shouting, "Riders!" Clara spun, axe still in hand. 3 silhouettes emerged from the horizon. Dark figures on horseback, gliding like shadows across the snow. They moved without haste, without fear. And they came straight for the cabins. Clara gripped the axe tighter. "Get May inside," she ordered. Rose obeyed, dragging the blanket-wrapped form inside the nearest cabin. The riders stopped several yards from Clara, dismounting in practiced silence. They wore thick hides and beadwork, feathers woven into dark hair. Each carried weapons, bows, knives, but they made no move toward her. One stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, with a presence that felt both steady and commanding. His name would come later, Mitu, but in that moment, he was simply a stranger wrapped in silence. He looked at Clara, then at the cabin door behind her. "Sick?" he asked, voice deep but calm. Clara hesitated, surprised to hear English. "My sister," she replied. "Fever." Mitu nodded once. He turned to the second man, Chaska, who carried a satchel of herbs. The third, Wikasa, scanned the horizon like a hawk, one hand resting on his bow. They were not wanderers. They were scouts, purposeful, watchful. "We bring food," Mitu said, gesturing to a leather bundle tied to his saddle. "Dried meat. Corn. You take." Clara didn't answer at first. Years of fear, taught by settler tales and church sermons, screamed at her to say no. But hunger was louder. "Yes," she whispered. "Please." That night, May ate venison broth with trembling hands. Her color returned. Rose wept openly when Wikasa handed her a bundle of dry firewood. Clara remained silent, still watching, still wary. But the Lakota did not leave. Not that night. Not the next. They camped near the cabins, sharing what they had. Not demanding. Not invading. Simply present. On the third morning, Chaska spoke to May about the moon, how it guided planting cycles. He pointed to the horizon and traced its curve with his finger, speaking softly. May smiled for the first time in weeks. Rose challenged Wikasa to a race through the snow. She lost, of course, but she laughed so hard she couldn't breathe. Her ribs ached in the best way. And Clara sat by the fire as Mitu prepared herbs to steep in boiling water. She watched his hands, sure, strong, careful. He worked without speaking unless spoken to. When she finally asked why they had come, he looked into the flames and answered, "We heard the land cry." Clara blinked. "The land?" "Yes. The trees, the wind, the earth. All of it listens. And when it weeps, we follow." That night, Clara stood beneath the sky, stars piercing through the darkness like 1,000 eyes. The snow had stilled. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't cold. Inside the cabin, May slept deeply. Rose stirred broth. The Lakota men sat near their campfire, quiet, respectful, separate. But Clara knew. A shift had begun. Their presence wasn't intrusion. It was invitation. Not to forget the past, but to imagine a future. Embers in the snow. Spring had not yet come, but something warmer than weather had begun to stir in the valley. It showed first in the smallest things. The way May lingered a little longer by the fire when Chaska sang softly in Lakota, his voice like smoke curling through the air. Or how Rose, once scornful of men, now leaned closer whenever Wikasa spoke, asking about hunting, laughing when he teased her accent. And Clara, strong, stoic Clara, found herself watching Mitu as he mended a broken arrow shaft with deliberate care. each movement slow and precise. But with each spark of connection came hesitation. Clara felt it most. One morning, she stood outside the cabin with Mitu, watching the clouds drift low over the hills. He handed her a carved wooden spoon. Simple, beautiful, the handle shaped like a bird in flight. "I made it for you," he said without looking up. Clara's breath caught. She took it gently, the wood still warm from his hands. "I'm still married," she whispered, though her voice lacked conviction. Mitu turned to her. "To a man who left you to die." "He was my husband," she said softly, "and you were his wife. But he broke that bond. You did not." His words echoed inside her long after he walked away. May's heart warred quietly with hope. She found herself sitting beside Chaska more often, her fingers learning the soft rhythm of weaving Lakota patterns. He told her stories of his childhood, of buffalo hunts, of songs his mother sang, and asked her gently about her own. "I lost 2 children," May said one evening, her voice almost too quiet to hear. "Edward said it was my fault, that my body was cursed." Chaska looked at her with eyes full of sorrow, not pity. "The river flows, even if stones fall in its path," he said. "You are not broken." May's tears fell silently onto her hands, and Chaska did not speak again. He simply sat beside her until the fire burned low. Rose, always the wild one, challenged Wicasa daily. She asked bold questions, rode too fast on borrowed horses, and dared him to wrestle her in the snow. But beneath the bravado was something fragile. One afternoon, Wicasa returned from hunting with a necklace of woven grass and feathers. He tossed it to her with a grin. "You're too loud for a rabbit, but you have a fox's fire." Rose laughed. "You flirting or insulting me?" "Both," he smirked. She paused. "You know what Thomas told me? That I talk too much. That no real man would keep a woman with a tongue like mine." Wicasa's gaze turned serious. "Then he wasn't a real man." She stared at him, unsure what to say. Later, alone beneath the birch trees, Rose ran her fingers over the necklace. It wasn't fine. It wasn't gold. But it was the first gift given to her without condition. Back in the cabins, the sisters whispered late into the night. "They are different," May said, voice hesitant. "They listen," Rose added. "They don't expect anything. They just see us." Clara remained quiet, staring into the fire. "It's not about forgetting," she finally said. "It's about allowing something new." And so, the days passed. The snow began to melt in patches, revealing damp earth beneath. Birds returned, timid but bold. Life stirred in more ways than one. The Lakota men remained close but respectful, never entering the cabins unless invited, never pushing affection. They offered and waited. But one evening changed everything. A fire had been built near the river, where the sky opened wide and the stars burned like silver. Mitu approached Clara with a quiet question. "Will you walk with me?" She hesitated, then nodded. They walked beyond the trees, where the river whispered beneath thin ice. Mitu stopped and turned to her. "I do not speak what I do not feel," he said. "I have watched you fight for your sisters, for your own heart. You are not a woman abandoned. You are a woman unbroken." Clara looked at him, searching for faucet. She found none. "I don't know if I can love again," she admitted. Mitu stepped closer, not touching. "Then let me teach you how to be loved." And Clara, for the first time since George disappeared, let herself exhale, not in fear, but in possibility. Sacred vows under open sky. The frost was receding. Earth once sealed under months of snow began to breathe again. Shoots of grass peeked through patches of thawed soil. The wind, once sharp with winter's bite, now carried the scent of pine and possibility. In the clearing near the river, preparations began. The Lakota elders had given their blessing. The women, Clara, May, and Rose, would not be claimed. They would not be possessed. They would be honored, asked, and welcomed. But before vows could be spoken, there were ghosts to bury. Clara stood beneath the old pine tree where George had once chopped wood, her hands clutching the yellowed piece of parchment he'd left behind. His final note, short, selfish, and cowardly. She read it one last time, then held it over the fire. The paper curled, darkened, and vanished in a flurry of ash. "I release you," she whispered, and meant it. Not far away, May walked slowly to the stream, Edward's iron ring in her hand. She paused at the edge, stayed into the rushing water, and remembered his cold eyes, his silence after each miscarriage, the hollow way he used scripture to shame her grief. She dropped the ring. The splash was soft, but final. Rose had no letters or rings, only a torn piece of lace from the wedding veil she'd once stitched herself. She carried it to the edge of the prairie, dug into the earth with her bare hands, and buried it beneath a birch tree. "For the girl I was," she said, "and the woman I choose to become." That evening, under a sky blushing with sunset, the three sisters emerged wearing dresses sewn from deerskin, hand-beaded with care. Their hair was braided, their faces free of paint or powder. There was no altar, no church pews, no judge. Only truth, only wind, only sky. Mata stepped forward first, meeting Clara with a gaze steady as stone. "I do not offer you shelter," he said. "You have already survived more than most. I offer you peace, and someone to guard the fire while you rest." Clara's eyes glistened, but she did not cry. "And I offer you honesty," she replied, "even when it's hard. Especially then." Chaska approached me, his hands gently cupping hers. "You are soft like river water, but you carry stone beneath," he said. "If you allow me, I will walk beside you through every season." May smiled, the corners of her mouth trembling. "And I will walk with you, without pretending to be someone I am not." Then Wakesa, bold and grinning, strode to Rose. "I don't want to tame you," he said. "I want to run with you." Rose laughed, loud and unfiltered. "Then you'd better keep up." The elders chanted blessings in Lakota. Drums echoed softly in rhythm with the heartbeat of the earth. Firelight danced across their faces, and the sky turned indigo, stars breaking open the heavens. No legal documents were signed. No witnesses were required. But vows were made, not in parchment, but in presence. Later, the couples danced near the fire. Slow steps, woven fingers, unhurried joy. Clara rested her head on Matu's shoulder, feeling safer than she had ever known. May swayed with Chaska, humming a lullaby she once thought she'd never sing again. Rose spun with Wakesa, wild and laughing, her spirit finally unchained. Far from churches and towns, in a place forgotten by settlers and untouched by law, three women found not just love, but freedom. Not the freedom of being alone, but the freedom of being seen, heard, chosen, not in desperation, but in reverence. And though they had been abandoned once, they would never again be defined by what was taken. Instead, they would be remembered for what they built, a family born not of blood, but of firelight, forgiveness, and the courage to love again.